I would like everybody to welcome Layth Mohammed Othman. Is that correct? Please, a big round of applause for Layth. I also had the pleasure to be Layth's advisor this year. And I have to tell you that, Layth was here at Berkeley before, and he was in the string department and doing fantastic things, but he was not part of the Institute. And he came in September as part of a member of the new master. And I think of all of the newer members, they all really resonated quickly with the goals of the Institute. But among all, I think Layth has been the one that was immediately really transformed and engulfed into the idea of the Institute. And everything started, I think, when we went to the Dominican Republic. From that trip on, I saw like such a transformation in his vision, in his thinking. It was just, wow, incredible. And I also, after that, I felt like he was with us forever. I felt like he was one of the members of the Institute since, 5-6 years, not just 1 month. What you'll see today in this presentation, to me, is really incredible in many ways. And I'm very, very excited to have you witness this. Please give it up for Layth once again.
Thank you, Marco. And I just want to say a quick congratulations to all my friends at the program. It's been amazing watching all the projects and seeing all the amazing music that's been produced. It's very inspiring. And congrats to Marta, who was my colleague and friend through this program as string players. Congratulations. Very proud of you.
Sorry, Layth. I also wanted to acknowledge Arnold Friedman, which is part of the panel. Please welcome Arnold. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Wow, so this year has been an incredible year for me, full of inspiration, full of challenges, sometimes struggles, but all of it was really healthy and towards the better. And out of this year, my outcome and my culminating experience has been split into 2 parts. The first one being my first album of original music. It's a musical suite entitled Son of Tigris. Tigris is one of the 2 rivers in Iraq that run through the capital city, Baghdad, and one of the 2 rivers that define Mesopotamia, meaning the land between 2 rivers. And as many of you know, or maybe don't know, I was born in Baghdad. I stayed there for a year, then moved to Jordan. So Iraq for me is the country of my roots, the country where I feel I belong, the country where my family is from. And for the concept of this album, I decided to go deep down into the tradition, into where my roots are, and use that as the basis, as the foundation for the music, as well as combining all the other musical influences that have come my way from the beginning of my musical career until now, to first of all to create a new platform for the violin in this world, maybe in a jazz setting or in a contemporary ensemble, as well as creating a cultural and musical bridge between jazz and Arabic music. I would like to acknowledge the musicians who were part of the album. On saxophone, Ed Colon, who's on probably all the projects so far. And happy birthday to him, it's his birthday today. On piano, Nando Michelin. On bass, James Hazelwood Dale. Drums, Patrick Simard. And on percussions, Jerry Leak and Saifuddin Hilal. I decided to write 4 movements for this suite, each one telling a story of its own, but yet containing the same arc. The first one I decided to call Baghdad, which is the capital of Iraq. And for the concept and to work on this movement, I decided to choose the Arabic Sama'i form, which is a form of music, an instrumental form that uses 4 sections and the refrain, and it's in an odd time signature, 10-4 or 10-8, depending on the composition. And of course, in the Middle East, we're used to either reading or without reading, we're used to seeing the composition written out in bars of 10, so 10-4, 10-4, 10-4, 10-4. That's very common to me, but coming into a different world, I realized that that might not be as common to other musicians. So what I decided to do is to break up the 10-4 into 4 bars of 3, 2, 2, and 3, with the accents going like this: dum, tak, dum, dum, tak. What that allowed me to do is to look at the whole phrase, at the whole clave, if you want to say, look at it in a much different way, instead of seeing it as one entity, seeing it as 4 different in one. And that gave me so much possibility for reharmonization, for rhythmic, harmonic rhythm, and for also displacement, and also gave the musicians a lot of ability to find their way within it, which gave it a whole different sense for me. It brought it into a new light for me. It was a new format. I would like to play for you, because of the time constraint, and I'm presenting 2 theses. I'd like to play for you the refrain part of the first movement, which is repeated 3 times throughout, and it really showcases that rhythm. So the first three sections of the first movement are following that form. And the 4th section, usually in the tradition, is the meter changes from a 10-4 or 10-8 into a 3-4 or a 4-4, meaning more dance-like, more virtuosic, more technical. But in this case, I decided to use the 10-8 rhythm of Georgina, which is a very popular Iraqi rhythm that is used a lot in many different compositions, old and new. And it's the same written in 10-8, but I decided to divide it up into 3-2-2-3, and it goes like this: 1-2-3, 1-2, 1-2, 1-2-3, 1-2-3, 1-2, 1-2, 1-2-3. And here's an example of a beautiful traditional Iraqi song called "Hada Mu Insaf Minnak," means that's not fair of you, and it's sung by Salima Murad, just so you can hear the rhythm, how it's sung in the tradition. So, basically, using this rhythm, I decided to bring it into this setting with the rhythm section and the violin and the melody is written very modally, very diatonic, but there was this one section where I decided to include some quarter tones, which is a really important aspect of the music in the Middle East, and it's something that we use a lot. And oftentimes when you try to harmonize quarter tones, you get into this zone of playing a lot of sus chords, a lot of open sounds, so that the quarter tone doesn't sound too out of tune because it's not tempered. And I remember a meeting with Danilo one time, and I was telling him that, yeah, I'm going to use all these sus chords, and I need to make it sound good, and he didn't like that idea, because as Danilo loved the idea of dissonance, and how dissonance can be a big part of the music. So I just want to show you what we got through. Originally, I had this idea of playing kind of this sound, but then because the quarter tone falls in between those two, but then he told me to use this, which for me was such a taboo in the beginning, because it's going against my whole idea of a microtone or a quarter tone being a pure thing of its own and not being challenged. But it was such an amazing moment to kind of come to the realization that, I have to challenge it. I'd like to go deeper into this and try and see what the dissonance will bring out of this. And the musicians were really, I really appreciate their commitment and dedication to make this work. And we went through many different ways to make this happen, and this is a short example of that. So this is the first movement of this. Thank you. Thank you. The second movement, entitled "The Fog," originally the name that I wanted to choose first was "Days of War." I wanted to represent that idea, but it was too direct. It was too visual, and I wanted something that you could relate to. So the title was very important for me to choose "The Fog," which is usually something that when you're driving and there's fog outside, you can't see what's coming to you, you can't see what's around you, and that idea of the struggle of the unknown, venturing into the unknown. And what I did for this song is I chose a very popular Iraqi love song called Fog al-Nakhal, meaning above the palm trees. It's a song that all Iraqis know and all Iraqis would sing along with it. Or not just Iraqis, all actually Arabs from the Middle East would know it. Very, very popular song. And here's a short example of how it's sung in the tradition by a great Iraqi singer called Yusuf Omar. So as part of the whole idea of this movement, I took this beautiful love song, this melody, and I tried to deform it. I tried to break it down. And instead of it being in 4/4, it became in 3/4, and using a lot of displacement, a lot of dissonance. And I used the AABA solo form, which was a beautiful thing to put this idea of a solo form into this music, which is something that I necessarily haven't experienced before, as well as using the abakwa that we talk about with Danilo all the time, and using that as kind of a centerpiece for the groove. So here's a quick example of the second movement, the fog. the second movement. Thank you. Thank you. The third movement, entitled Eastern Waves, is a ballad in ABA form, using the rhythm called Shaftatelli, which is a, I'm going to sing it for you even though it's written there. It goes dum, ta, ta, dum, ta, dum, ta, ta, dum, tak. The melody is written very diatonic, very modal, and kind of using harmony that would complement the modality, meaning the bass note would have the tonic of the whole scale, yet the right hand is experimenting with different harmonies, different chords, different dissonances, using the tenor saxophone as a feature because it's one of my favorite instruments, aside from the violin, being an instrument that, as Marta already also said, it's the closest instrument to the human voice and has a lot of passion, a lot of depth. And Edmar played beautifully on this track. So this is a short example of his solo and a bit of the melody. For the last part of this movement, this third movement, I decided to sing. It's something that I enjoy doing, but had never recorded or have never been in a studio to record my voice in such a way. And I called my grandfather, who's here in the audience, and I asked him, I want a poem that really talks about the beauty of Iraq. Because oftentimes when we talk about countries facing difficulties, we often talk about the bad things instead of really showcasing and bringing to light the beautiful things, the beautiful culture, and all the joy that the people have, because that's really what the culture is about. And we chose this. I chose this first line from the poem by Muhammad Mahdi al-Jawahiri, a very famous poet, and the translation is written there: "Peace on the hills of Iraq and its rivers, shores, and curves." And I just wanted to say that it was incredible how much the musicians, the way they played, changed drastically from when we were playing on instruments and then when I was singing. Because there's a much deeper relation that we all have when we hear the human voice. There's something that connects on a much faster level, and suddenly the whole environment changed. I remember we did maybe 1 or 2 takes on this, and it was too special to do more. So this is just a short part of that.
سلام على هضبات العراق سلام على هضبات العراق وشطيه والجرف والمنحنى.
just a short sample. Thank you. Thank you. The last movement is called Unshakable Roots, meaning wherever we go, home is still inside of us. And it's not about the land so much, but more about the people. And I chose to, for the first part, I chose to use this mode. I'm not going to go so much deep into it because of time. I want to move forward. But it basically exemplifies that the culture, we celebrate sad music, we celebrate melancholy, but at the same time we celebrate joy, and that's a big part of this album, this music. So the first part is celebrating that light and dark relationship, and the second part is using the chobi rhythm, which is a dance rhythm that we use in weddings and very popular. Everyone dances to it. In fact, I was dancing to it 2 days ago on the weekend, and it goes dum 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 ta dum ta ta dum 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 ta dum ta ta dum. And Saifuddin Hilal, which is a great percussionist from Tunisia, recorded this instrument, the khishba, on the track, which is a very traditional Iraqi instrument, and you'll hear the sound. It's hard to explain in words. So here's the first part. Second part. The khishba. Just an idea. Thank you. Before the final part, I'd like to give a huge thanks to Matthew Nicol for being the producer for the album, as well as Roy Bukris for being the head engineer and the mixing engineer, and Adam Weiss for being the house engineer and mix one. Please, a round of applause for all of them. Thank you. The second and final part of this presentation is regarding the Amman Music Institute. This is a vision that, or an idea that came about for me when we were at the Dominican Republic, and I remember that very clearly. We went to this foundation called Mustard Seed. Some of us have been there before, so they know what it's like. It's hard to explain what it really is. You have to go and see, but it's basically a foundation that takes care of children and kids who are with disabilities, or were abandoned as kids, were left at the doorsteps of churches, of houses. And when you go there, it's almost like there is no air to breathe. We walked in, we saw all these kids laying down on mattresses on the floor, not able to move, not able to speak, some of them sleeping, some of them closing their eyes. We walked in, it was dead silence. And then slowly we started playing, and I'll never forget there was a moment when some of them were touching the tenor sax, trying to feel the vibration. Some of them started moving. Some of them started smiling and shaking their heads. And talking about it like this doesn't make so much sense until you really go there and experience it for yourself. It's the power of sound and vibrations in that moment was more than special. And it really made me appreciate me being an artist and a musician and what the responsibility that comes with that. And I thought about myself growing up in Jordan and coming from Iraq to Jordan and growing all the time there and kind of being taken in by the country and bringing me to this point in my life. And how important it is that I share what I know with the community that I have in Jordan and all these lessons that I've learned. It's something so valuable, and especially in a region where music education in a very core basic level is not so present. And it's something that is so powerful, is so needed in a region where culture is something that we should value and it should be an important thing. So the vision, it's going to be basically it's an idea for now that I would like to pursue in the near future, to have a space where all artists from all genres can come together and create, see all the similarities that they have with each other, and talk and discuss ideas about how the Jordanian community can improve itself and can use music as a tool to help the surrounding regions that's filled with refugees. Talking about it again sounds like it's just talking without action, but a commitment to this is something is hard to do, but it's definitely the results from doing something like this can be incredible. And the purpose for this institute is, first of all, is to give a different angle to music education in Jordan. I'm not saying this should be something different from all the other institutes there, but rather be provide a supporting role, bringing another vision, another way of teaching music to the region, and hopefully working hand in hand in creating a stronger community that values music and values culture and values art, in despite of everything else. Give back to Jordan, the country that gave me so much, me and my family, and it's something that I have in my mind to do in the coming future. The mission is to empower the idea of art for social change by sharing all these stories. I thought about this, and the thing that I would love to do is, it doesn't mean that I would go into to refugee camps and play music and be done with it. It's more of meeting the people there and finding some students, some kids, some children who have talent that's noticeable, and using them or using that to develop themselves and inspire the people around them, because we have to plant the seed and then the tree will grow by itself. The key points that at the end of this presentation that I wanted to talk about the Institute is music is for everyone. Artists are important in society because they have the capability to use their artistry in bringing social change and contributing to their environment. This must be empowered, especially in the Middle East. Humanity should erase the divide that is separating us, and this starts when we start looking at our similarities instead of our differences. The Institute will provide a space for musicians from all genres to come together and discuss ways in how to influence the Jordanian community and reinforce the power of music, as well as meeting, teaching, and performing with the refugees in the outskirts of Jordan. They need our attention, and music is one of the tools that we will use to help. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you.
Wow. Okay, who want to be the first one?
Wow, it's amazing. You know, all the stuff that you did is amazing with both projects. I just want to say a few things about the first one. Just listening to you play, I mean, it's obvious you're a great player because you have amazing technique, and your intonation is so good. That's, you know, one of my issues with strings, intonation, and why, you know, it doesn't gravitate into the jazz world, you know, at least for some of us. But I don't know if I've heard anybody with, you know, any better intonation. But the thing that really strikes me about your playing, which just hit me today, is something that I noticed with great players. Like I've spent a lot of time with Herbie Hancock and Wayne Shorter, and They talk about when they play, hearing other instruments in their head. They say often that I'm not playing the saxophone or I'm not playing the piano. And, I'm still trying to grasp that on the drums because I still, most of the time feel like I'm playing the drums. But, when I was listening, I really felt like I was hearing the human voice at some points while you were playing, and I felt like I was hearing actually saxophone sometimes, and it was funny because you said that you love that instrument. So I think that's a very, very high level of musicianship when you can actually make people not realize that they're, not focused on the instrument that you're actually playing. And your blend, with the band, with everybody was amazing. Shows great leadership to pull that together the way you did without a whole lot of time in the studio. And it just made me think about a Buddhist phrase called Itai Doshin, which is many in body and one in spirit. And that's what just kept coming to me, because that's what it sounded like, which is a very hard thing to actually get in music. We all try to do it, but it doesn't somehow come together like that often. So it's very magical when it does. And the opposite of that, would be the opposite of that. So congratulations on really being able to have such a unifying sound and merger between the jazz culture and Arabic music. You really nailed that, and it's so important, that kind of cultural merger and exchange. So thank you for that. You've been a really great example, I think, in the Institute of for how people can come together and have understanding. And really, it's like your contribution to world peace, just one step at a time, one note at a time, one day at a time. And that's just really admirable. Thank you.
Layth, I'm going to echo a lot of what she just said. When I've heard you play in the past, I've remarked how human, how much your sound is like the human voice. So it was a pleasure to hear your actual voice, your actual singing voice. And I realize why your playing sounds so vocal, because you have that connection. And thank you for talking about your humanitarian project. I just give you lots of encouragement. Beautiful.
Layth, I don't know what I can add to what's already been said. This is really a masterpiece, and the fluidity with which you were able to fuse the various musical languages, the kind of polyglot, you're really living what you and demonstrating so beautifully, so artistically what you believe. I can't imagine anything better. And I love the when you were talking about how to harmonize those quarter tones with that tempered beast over there. The solution was so elegant and eloquent. Last thing I'll say is Godspeed with the Amman Music Institute.
Late, the first advising session, you came to my office and we started talking about your project. You said you wanted to do what?
Yeah, I should have mentioned that. So the first 2 weeks of the program, I remember we had an advising session. And I was going there so strong, thinking, I'm going to do this. I'm going to write this book, or like a method book for the violin in different styles. And then And then Marco was sitting there, going, He said, jive. And what he meant by that, he meant that this is something that I could do in a week or in a month, but he wanted me to really explore what I could do in a year at the Institute. And I'm so happy that I actually had that meeting with you, because that was a beginning of thinking outside the box, thinking bigger.
But my question was, can you describe how, from starting with an idea to do a method book, you arrived to this? What clicked in your head that made such an opening? Because that to me is very, this story is very, it needs to be told in your own words, and we all need to hear this.
Yeah, I mean, coming to the Institute, I was coming from an Arabic music background, Western classical background, and from the first day, I felt I was challenged. It was something new. It was an unknown environment to me, and I realized that the thing that I have so strongly is my identity, my roots, where I come from, and using that as a foundation for this year, and kind of really bringing that to the forefront of this year of my project, and really observing all the things that we talk about in the Institute, all the philosophy, the talk about the process and how important it is, more than the actual result. I mean, presenting this or selling the album, or it's great, but I think I value more remembering the first advising session and all the stuff that happened after it to bring me to this moment. And it was really the Dominican trip. I mean, that experience really hit me. I mean, I always thought as an artist as a violinist, let's say I should, I don't know, make records or maybe play in festivals or play in ensembles, be a sideman, and do the usual gigs. But that trip made me really think about what an artist is supposed to do, and what the power that we have in to use our music and our artistry. And I saw it so clearly when after the trip I saw it in Danilo, and I saw it in this program, and I thought this is something that I want to pursue. It's something that I could have a strong leading voice in, especially coming from a pure place. I don't want for it to be something that I take glory for, but mostly to bring change and to just give back from the heart.
I think when I see you playing, and when I see you speaking, and when I see this presentation, you're such an example of what people don't think musician can be. Musicians usually think are people that are up in the air, and they just function when they have their instrument in your hand. And you clearly have such a different model, and I think that's a very beautiful example of what musicians can and should do, not just with their music, but with their ideas, with their life. And while I was looking at your presentation and everything you were talking and hearing your music, it came to my mind, a masterclass that Wayne Shorter did in Panama this summer, and I remember he said this phrase that I think about all the time, and he said, music is like a scalpel. In the hand of a doctor, it heals. In the hand of a criminal, it hurts. And I really think you're a doctor.
Thank you.
Layth.
Thank you, Marco. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Layth. Okay, 2 minutes and... Oh, yes. Maybe you should... acknowledge your family.
Actually, if you look at the third row, my whole family is right there.
All right. Can you guys please stand up? Can you please stand up?
Yeah.
That would be beautiful.
My brother, his new wife, my father, grandfather,
Yeah.
my aunt, my mother, my grandmother, and my cousin Sarah.